This is your weekend preview for Monster Energy AMA Supercross in Arlington, Texas. All part of the Super Motocross World Championship. We'll also bring you the injury report brought to you by our friends at Leatt. At the top of the 450 standings, well, it doesn't get much closer than this. So, we have a scenario where many top superstar riders are out with injury. The class is honestly just ravaged with injuries. Yet, the championship and the racing remains very close. It's tied at the top, tied between Cooper Webb, who's surging with 2-1 scores in the last two races, and Chase Sexton, who had a crash he'd like to get back from Tampa and a getting stuck in the gate and crash he'd like to get back from last weekend in Detroit. So it's a true showdown this weekend with the points tied, momentum starting to move toward Webb, and Webb heading into a track where he is easily the all-time best. He has won 6 of the last 8 races held at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. It doesn't quite have the branding of the Eli Tomac level of dominance in Daytona, but the numbers have it. Webb has a way of getting it done at this track. Jason Thomas will talk more about the track in a bit, but he has already said this type of dirt just works so well for Webb, and let's not forget this time of year works better. He usually starts the season slow and hits his stride now. So that puts the onus on Sexton to change that narrative, flip the script, get the point lead back, beat Webb at one of his best tracks. That could speak volumes insofar as the championship. And also don't count out Ken Roczen. Had he not crashed out of the race in Tampa, he would actually be the point leader. Doesn't have a win yet, but has ridden well in every race this year. It really feels like Roczen is due for a win, and he is only 16 points down. So if he gets one, he'll reinsert himself right back in the middle of the title fight. Remember, he had the red plate just a few weeks ago. And we can mix this up even more because this weekend is a Triple Crown format. 3 shorter main events in each class, just like what we saw at Glendale, Arizona 3 weeks ago. And oh, by the way, the riders we saw in the 250 class in Glendale are back. This resumes the 250 West Championship for one weekend. 250 East returns next week at Daytona. And if you remember the race for the 250 class at Glendale, well, what a cliffhanger they left us on. We don't know where this series is going. If you're young Cole Davies, you feel like that's the one that got away. He won the first 2 Triple Crown races, then crashed early in race 3. He's got to feel like he's due for a win. But then Juju Beaumer was out front early in the first 2 mains and crashed. He has to feel like he should have won, and that one got away from him. So confidence there for them. And then Jordan Smith actually did win the Triple Crown overall at Glendale. So confidence high for him, and they continue to make strides with that Triumph motorcycle. And of course, you have to mention Hayden Deegan, who is right in the title fight as well and has a win this year. Only 3 points separate Beaumer, second place Smith, and third place Deegan in the standings. And we'll throw one more factor in there. This class has had 4 winners in 4 rounds, and the round 1 winner, Joe Shimoda, the fingers are healing up. He ended up not needing surgery, and we believe he will actually be able to ride the motorcycle this week for the first time since he broke the fingers at round 2. So don't count Shimoda out as a factor as well. Now let's break down the racetrack. We bring in former pro racer Jason Thomas with his quick take on what he sees at AT&T Stadium.
Arlington presents another Triple Crown event for round 7, and the track this weekend should deliver. First thing we'll notice is the start is a little bit longer this weekend than we've seen as of late. That's going to open up those outside gates where some of the riders haven't been able to use those as effectively. A shorter start doesn't give you the room to get down there and move over, to use all that horsepower and come in hot and try to get a good start from the outside. So think about riders who like it out there. Justin Cooper comes to mind. I would have said Eli Tomac and Hunter Lawrence both like to move a little bit outside, but of course they're injured. But watch for those. Maybe they don't get the best gate pick. They can still pull a hole shot from the outside gates, which is a little bit of a new thing for 2025. It's pretty typical, but we just haven't seen longer starts here thus far. One change to the track map. On the original maps, they had 3 jumps before the whoops, which would have been very good for a rider like Malcolm Stewart. Triple N used all of that momentum to his advantage, but on the final track map, they have moved those 3 jumps to the end of the whoops. So I think that helps a rider like Cooper Webb, who is going to be able to use the inside of the corner. He's not going to have to be victim to all of that momentum if he wants to jump through there. So it is a significant change, I think, in how the racing may turn out. And then the one final note, the finish line, they have a triple on the track map. A lot of times they'll take that out. They just don't think it's safe, or they don't like the way that it races. So watch for that to maybe end up a double by the time we go racing. But overall, pretty good track. The dirt here is some of the favorite for the racers. It's a very cold environment here in Arlington, but it should be just fine when we go racing for another Triple Crown event and back to the 250 West for Saturday night.
Now let's get to the injury report brought to you by our friends at Leatt. One thing to note, Eli Tomac recently did an interview with Dom Maeda at Swap Moto Live saying he hopes to be back before Supercross is over to get in racing and gate drops before the Pro Motocross Championship. So that's sort of good news. Certainly it'd be great to see Tomac racing this weekend, but he's healing up pretty quickly. Now here's the injured riders in the 450 class. Cade Clayson broke his arm in Tampa. He's going to be out for a few weeks. Christian Craig, hoping to be back from his knee injury at Indianapolis or Birmingham. You know the Lawrence brothers are out. Hunter with a shoulder, Jet with his knee. Freddie Noren, he should be back for Arlington after missing 2 rounds. He dislocated his shoulder at Glendale. Jorge Prado out for the rest of Supercross. We did speak to Monster Energy Kawasaki team manager Dan Fahey last weekend. He thinks Prado should be back on the bike in late April, so he should be ready to go for the beginning of Pro Motocross. Now, since 250 West is back, here's your injury report there. Drew Adams broke his collarbone at Glendale, was hoping to maybe be back this weekend. That's not going to happen. He's out. Ryder DeFrancisco with some internal injuries and a broken arm. He'll miss Arlington, and we don't know when he'll be back. Derek Drake is dealing with Lyme's disease. He's out. Evan Ferry, Achilles, he's out. Talon Hawkins broke his femur. He's out. Avery Long will return to racing after a concussion in San Diego. And probably the biggest injury of all, this actually happened right before Detroit while practicing. The Frenchman Anthony Burden broke his hip, pelvis, and back with a huge crash. Tough go for him. We wish him well. That's going to be a big, big recovery there. Some other riders out. Ty Masterpool broke his fingers in San Diego. He will not race this weekend. And Styles Robertson needed more surgery on his wrist, so he is now out for the rest of Supercross and hopes to be back for the beginning of Motocross. Robbie Wageman is a wrist injury. He's out. Noah Viney, a shoulder injury. He's out. That's the extent of the injury list in 250 West. If you want to watch this weekend, everything is live on Peacock or the Super Motocross Video Pass if you're outside the United States. Race Day Live qualifying coverage begins at 2 o'clock Eastern. There will be a half-hour pre- and post-race show from Arlington, similar to what was seen at Anaheim 1. So tune on to Peacock at 7 o'clock Eastern for the half-hour pre-race show with myself, Jason Weigandt, Justin Brayton, and Adam Ciarullo previewing the weekend. And then racing begins at 7:30 Eastern. So that's pre-race show at 7, racing starting at 7:30. We'll see you in Texas.